The secret number for Lesson 9 is 0. Lesson 9, the International Phonetic Alphabet. You are probably wondering, why is this lesson included in this course? Because I probably am not going to be singing in a foreign language. Or you might be thinking, why do I need to learn this at all? I can always listen to how it's pronounced online, or I can look at some easy to understand system that somebody wrote down, or I could figure it out on my own and it'll be fine, right? I'm giving you this International Phonetic Alphabet as a tool that you can use should you choose to want to sing in any foreign language. I'm not expecting that you're going to be perfect at it in terms of the assignment, but it is a situation where it's kind of like sheet music. When you're trying to learn to read sheet music, it's like another language. The International Phonetic Alphabet is a tool, a key to be able to pronounce any language. And there are some languages out there that if you look at the characters in the language, they're not like A through Z. They're set up in such a manner that if you had no idea what the characters would sound like, you couldn't sing the song. So you want to be able to do any music in any language and be able to pronounce it. The International Phonetic Alphabet will give you the tools to do so. Ave Maria is a song that is chosen for a lot of different weddings. And I chose this particular version because it's one of the ones that a lot of people use. There are several versions of Ave Maria, and there are a few of them that are used quite often. This particular one has been used a lot in weddings in my personal experience, and so I chose this one as an example. Ave Maria, of course, is in Latin, which, again, some people are thinking, I'm not singing in Latin. Why do I need to learn how to do this? Well, let's say you have a friend, and that friend always wanted to have Ave Maria at their wedding, and they really want you to sing. So suddenly you're in a pickle, and you want to figure out how in the world can I get this done. So that is what the IPA, or the International Phonetic Alphabet, will give you. A couple of words of caution in terms of Latin particularly. We talked a lot in the text at one point about English and Latin in terms of vowels. English vowels, we have a lot of words that if you look at it and you didn't know English, you wouldn't know how to pronounce it. And they have things what's known as diphthongs, or two vowel sounds together. And using the word wide as an example, if I were to say that slowly, it sounds like this. Wide. So you have the ah vowel, and then you have the I vowel. In typical classical singing, anytime we're treating a diphthong, we want to treat it as if the first one is long and the second one is short. Oh, the water is wide, I cannot cross o'er. In some dialects, it is the opposite. In Irish, if you were to sing that same word, you would actually do the exact opposite. So if I were to sing an Irish song, and I were to sing, say, for example, a traditional folk song called Carrickfergus, and I sang it in complete Irish accent, it would sound with all the I's would have the second vowel being important. Example. I wish I was in Carrickfergus, but the sea is wide and I cannot cross over, nor have I the wings to fly. So depending on the dialect, diphthongs could be treated differently. But in general, we tend to have it be the first vowel as being the long one, the second vowel is very short. Back to the Latin. In Latin, and other languages that were derived directly from Latin, vowels are what are known as pure vowels, meaning there are no diphthongs, they just are simple vowels. For example, every time you see a letter A, it's always ah. Every time you see the letter E, it's always eh. Every time you see the letter I, it's always E. Every time you see the letter O, it's always O. And every time you see the letter U, it's always U. So, in general, if somebody is not used to singing in Latin, the word or the vowel per se that gets given the diphthong the most is the letter E. Example, Ave Maria Gratia Plena instead of Ave Maria Gratia Plena. So you want to actually, and you have to think about it at first. If you're not used to this, you have to think, okay, how am I forming these vowels? If I do it in slow motion, it's easier to see. Ave, oops, there's the diphthong. Ave Maria. One of the rules of thumb to try and make sure that this happens is that you always want to think about this. How do you stop singing? The answer, you stop singing. You don't do anything to stop the sound other than the diaphragm stays engaged. I'll just sing that first couple notes and I'll do it where I'm doing something to stop the sound. Ave, or Ave, versus Ave. Notice the sound just stopped, but I didn't change my mouth position to make the sound stop. That is one way to make sure that you stay away from having a diphthong. Now, if I were to sing that whole first phrase in not so great Latin, it could sound something like this. Ave Maria, gratia plena, etc. Versus, if I were to think specifically about the pure vowels, it would sound like this. Ave Maria, gratia plena. One other word of caution specifically, because it's something that happens a lot with singers who are not used to Latin. You see the word I-N, and you think it sounds like the English word in. But in Latin, since the I is always E, the sound is actually een. Again, this is where having the International Phonetic Alphabet can be important, because you can instantly say, oh, I recognize that symbol is always this sound. Remember, the symbol is the sound, no matter if it looks like an alphabet symbol that you're used to seeing in English or not. And so when you're looking at it in IPA, the denotion is always going to be the brackets. You'll know that means it's IPA. You always have to think about, okay, if that symbol looks like that, it's going to be this sound. One other word in terms of Ave Maria and specifically in how to sing the song, where a lot of people have some vocal issues. Besides the Latin, another major issue with Ave Maria, and this is why I also chose it to be the final vocal assessment, is that you have to think about all of the different techniques we've talked about so far, and they tend to be utilized all the time throughout the entire piece. We have long phrases, so you have to have good breath. We have jumps that go from different parts of the range, so you always have to make sure that you're thinking about how you can approach that. We have a foreign language. We have a situation where you have to communicate that. One of the problems in communicating foreign languages also, just as a side note, is that you as the singer have to know what those words mean, because how are you going to know what the most important word of the phrase is if you're just looking at a translation that's a general idea versus what the word-for-word translation is. You also have to be mindful as you're singing the song is that when you get into that higher part of the last part of the song, is that you have to think about all of the things that you do to create the good sound with the diaphragm, and you have to use it to like the nth degree, and so that you don't have disaster as you get to the highest notes. And I'm going to give you an example in that, just that last phrase. As I'm going, again, of course, right now I'm singing a cappella, but I want you to think about how, if I'm doing this, I have to think about all the different scenarios that we've talked about in order to create that F sharp at the top without having a break. Keep in mind, I'm a baritone, I'm not a tenor, so I have to use them really to the best of my ability. So here is that last phrase. Ora pro nobis, nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Amen. I hope that this has been a great experience for you in learning more about how to use your voice in singing, and I look forward to hearing you in the last vocal assessment.